Readers here who both have ties to the Philadelphia area, Caren Beilin and Hilary Plum, and I'm excited to introduce them both. If you've not been to the Writers House before, you can sign our guest book in the front, and then you will get mailings, even a physical calendar in the mail every month, which is really nice. It's light green this month. If you'd like to take a calendar, you can. There are events here every day. We had 2 lunch programs, lots of stuff. So lots of stuff to do. This is the best, but there's other lots of things. Okay, so Caren is going to read first, followed by Hilary. And I wanted to say that we have both of their recent books for sale here at cost. So you can buy these books in the back. And I imagine the authors would be happy to sign them when you purchase them. Caren Beilin's Revenge of the Scapegoat narrates and nags at the narrative labels our families give to us and how those play out in our lives as daughters, lovers, as academics, as a sick body. How might chronic pain amid family crisis lead to a novella formed like no other I have seen? And what burden might we leave the work with? What burdens do we want to leave for the scapegoat herself? Reading this book was for me a strange yet familiar delight that taught me through both its absurdities and its traumas, and I'm pumped to hear it out loud. Welcome, Caren.
Hi. Does this work? It does. Oh, there's so many wonderful, familiar faces here. I'm just really beaming. And I'm happy to meet new people as well. And thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you to everybody who works here and is just helping us do this so wonderfully. Thank you to Hilary, who's just been my co-conspirator in so many different situations. It's like the delight of my life. So thank you. Okay. I wrote a little something to start us off. And Michelle, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to read from Revenge of the Scapegoat. So hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. This is a difficult day in a difficult time. Some of us, I am, are feeling stunned, fraught, raw, stung, stunned. I'm not going to read anything about any of that. In fact, I'm going to read something that is in a way not too serious. But here I am acknowledging this intersection of what I've been writing and working on, a new novel, for the past few years, and now saying it out loud here a bit in this time, apart from and with this difficulty. It is my job to confront and to touch difficulty, and there are a lot of ways to do that. And I wanted in this new novel I'm working on, to confront the prevalence, the everywhere and everywayness of sexual assault. So you'll hear that mentioned a bunch. My novel, this one I'm working on, is called The Sea and Poison. Or it's not actually called that. It's called Sea Poison, after another novel that's called The Sea and Poison. And it's about a writer, totally not like me, named Caren Beilin. And I'm mostly going to read to you from an interaction she has with someone she meets at a cafe in this very city, also totally unlike me, named Caren Beilin. But before that, I'm going to read a scene with her and somebody named Alex, who she has a really big crush on. Caren, these are like the things you need to know. It's such a convoluted novel, so I'm sorry. Caren has been an unwilling participant in a medical experiment that has burnt a part of her brain. She has essentially a really extreme form of writer's block and is living with the people who conducted this experiment on her, primarily somebody named Marin, and increasingly Alex, in South Philly, if you know it. And I think that's what you need to know. Also, I have to have a professorial moment. So somebody help me out so we can all enjoy together. So what is the deal with the Madeleine and Proust? Oh, we have a librarian of French literature right over there. What is the deal? What happens when he eats the Madeleine? And then it creates a memory. He begins to remember things. Okay. Just making sure we're all together here. Okay. A loose relationship with even your underpants signals to me a momentous time. Your underpants in a momentous time have something of their own instinctive life, not always clinging about. Your underpants become sentient and independent some summers. And my heart, I don't know how else to say, it was a water bottle of fizzy booze lying in meadows of stinging sinew in the black air, packed like black eels like sardines in a dawning tin. I was still crushing on Alex, and lately I've been taking my underwear off about it. Is it okay to be this horny? I was walking around thinking of Alex all of the time and his BDE. I was almost squeezing, holding, kissing, and loving anything I touched. The couch, even the printer, got my loving touch. And I looked at cracks in the sidewalk and street and thought about jamming my actual clit into them like a fin searching to surface in the inverse, getting off, I hoped it would, on the jagged way a crack acts. I wanted a crack in a sidewalk basically to use its crackling edges to stimulate me. I'm trying to say that I was looking with lust and erotic admiration at the sidewalk and at anything. I thought about Alex and how much I wanted his cock inside of me, including my blood cells and immune system, which had been suppressed by the drug Rinvoq, into keen submission and was ready for his domination. But in fact, he'd never called me after the night in the basement. I'd texted. In the middle of the night, I was going crazy, rolling around in bed and making myself come on a wearing loop. I had few means of expression. I thought about writing and about that maxim about writing, about you need to fire a gun in the third act. And I thought, come on, if this is a novel and there's a character introduced who has a hotness condition of BDE, doesn't his big dick have to be exposed and explode down the line? Don't I get it? I texted Alex a lot, my short, stalled sentences. I like you. Do you want to take a walk? Can we talk? I had the dog saliva of summer all over my fingers, and I made myself come over and over with them as they bent and sprang with ease, like a true Pavlovian who's made to come every time I think of that certain person with his big bell energy. Shit. That's all. It was a predicament. Underwear, get out. I killed a succulent on accident, but he was back with Marin. Alex was really back with her. In her polyamorous universe, he was Saturday, and I think that's a compliment. He came over one morning with a bag of new sex toys. She liked that stuff a lot. Marin showered preparing for their sex, and we sat in the kitchen with a bag from Condom Kingdom on South Street, between us on the table. Let me see. He'd brought a toy that spoke up as a dick Teddy Ruxpin. It was more than I could bear. It was it was a big brown dick in a vest saying all of the old phrases. Can you and I be friends? There's nothing in the world like a good friend. I really enjoy talking to people. He'd bought a vibrating Madeleine butt plug. Proustian sex technology, that Madeleine, more retro of a sex toy than a dildo of Ruxpin, who I myself remembered fucking as a child, turned on by the hard area of his tape deck in his stomach. The sudden plane of hardness, so vibratory with such speeches, story time, offers of friendship. I mounted that hard area of the tape deck on Ruxpin's tum like a dolphin hopping on a daze at a questionable spectacle, but nobody questioned SeaWorld then. A Madeleine butt plug, wow, Was this Marin's request? I didn't know she read literature. Is she interested in the totalizing evacuation of anything that is at all quotidian, to be replaced not even by a sense of a present or the past, but rather the extreme formation of an instant around which a song of possibilities twists? Is this so? Honestly, I've never seen her reading much French literature. What is this for Janine? It's a different character. Are you honestly fucking both of them? Wow. I held on to the butt plug to its formidable base. Cumin, you are fucking tripping. You think Condom Kingdom sells Madeleine cookie butt plugs a la Proust? You think Condom Kingdom is interested in the experience of magical fucking simultaneity as expressed by Maurice Blanchot, which you seem to have no problem plagiarizing in casual conversation? That's fucked. You think I'm fucking Marin and Janine? Maybe. But Cumin, get a grip. This is a fucking Glade plugin with shell design. And you know why? Because it's getting a little rank upstairs. He looked at me like I was rank. Okay, I didn't see there was a separate CVS bag in here. Sorry. It's fine. I didn't know they still made Glade plugins. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Cumin has to drink her tea, and she has to go to Ultimo Cafe on Saturdays because she needs to get out of the house while this other activity is happening. So she's sitting there. This is going to be a real conversation between Caren Beilin and Carbon Balloon, and it's going to get like really. I don't want to be that writer who's always going like this during a reading, you know. So I'm just going to stand over here when I'm Carbon Balloon. I'm going to stand over here when I'm being expository, and I'm going to stand over here as Cumin. Okay, and you're all going to know. Okay. This woman I sat down with at Ultimo wanted to talk with me. I had always believed, she said, Carrie Bradshaw was a survivor. It made sense to me. She acted that way. In the first seasons especially, she was throwing her stuff at people and walls. She would throw things at her best friends. She slammed chairs and threatened to upend tables, disrupting the other diners and damaging upscale NYC restaurant property, like in almost every episode, especially in the first few seasons, the late 90s. It was packaged as passionateness, the passion of Carrie. But I don't know, I always knew there was some person at the writing table who was steering this ship from the root of their childhood rape. That's how the show read to me. Not even her. They weren't leaving her. She got upset in this such an unhinged way. If someone moved to leave her apartment, that cesspool of silk heaps, even for an hour to go get something, like a coffee or going to work or to see some of their family members, it would begin her very ferocious behavior. She was upset, really disappointed and furious all of the time. It was unnerving to me. Her attachment style was that of an incest survivor, that's all. There aren't any parents for the 4 good friends on that show. Attell. What are you making? This? I'm only knitting to be furious. I went up for a cortado. She said she was using knitting to occupy her hands because she couldn't write anymore. She had writer's block. You're a writer? Is this working? This is a screenwriter. I'm writing a screenplay, but I'm stuck. I came here to knit. Look, I didn't bring my laptop. I met one of the writers for Sex and the City, 1998 to 2004, at a residency program. She was my tutor. They called them our tutors in a British way. They were very serious people. I became determined to find out if she'd survived incest. Maybe she, one of the writers, was the reason CB was such a survivor. My table mate looked like SJP, but Semitic, Olivan, everything that's pale or pink, it's a no. And instead she had brackish hair in the shape of a busted triangle, overstuffed and sprung like a stabbed cushion. Gray tinsel was at 1/3 throughout. She wore a long dress in a reactively unfeminine shape, black and with a print of rusty triangles smearing into spectrums, continuums, and traces. I mouthed about the pattern, over-staring into her dress, even near the hot zones. I was being inappropriate. I tried to compensate by actually listening. I couldn't, though, find the triangle I really wanted. I couldn't peel off triangles with my eyes alone and put them on my zones and use the rotations of Earth and friction with constellations to make them vibrate like Madeline's. So I kept staring and trying to really listen. The Sex and the City writer was my third choice. I wanted to work with a woman, and she was one of 3. In a way, she was my last choice, the last woman. There were about 40 tutors to choose from a menu. I paid a lot, of money. Who was the most famous? The Coen brothers. It's a big scene, but a lot of people were like me, trying to get in with women who weren't as famous, though Sex and the City is prestige for TV, and the tutor had worked on Sex and the City 1, 2008, and 2, 2010, as well. They go to Dubai. Nobody thought men could be their mentor. I'm sure a Coen brother could help you out. No, they were very aloof, very gregarious and aloof. Do you wish the show or the Sex and the City movies had talked openly about the incest Carrie Bradshaw had survived? Are you talking specifically about the elevators in The Shining? Blood coming out of them in the hotel lobby? Something like elevators, sure, blood coming from her compulsive closet or something. Did your tutor ever confirm it? I don't know how else to ask. Was the tutor a I think maybe a Coen brother could help. Maybe they really might. I don't know. It's more, and this seemed to be the feeling among the women who were the primary customers of this sort of pricey residency I did. Let me explain. It was at this Catskills resort and farm where Dirty Dancing, 1987, had actually been filmed, Cumin. It was tailored for women like me, born in the 80s, Jewish, for whom that all meant. Men aren't good at screenwriting, Cumin. They've made good work through the torsions of industry. There are good producers and, of course, great actors. And we like it. We like those movies. I personally like Burn After Reading, 2008, from the Coen brothers. I like the fuck chair genre. I like Claire Denis' film High Life, 2018, for the same reason. When Juliette Binoche in that film, and in her 60s at this point, goes into that room on the spaceship where there's a fuck chair, and she undoes her braid, and it looks like river webs, like a map of a witched earth on her strong back. I like the figure of the movie director as the inventor of the right fuck chair. And that was the right fuck chair for Binoche or her character or whatever in that moment. I like the moment in a film where someone opens up a door and there's a fuck chair. Or in Burn After Reading, where the fuck chair, George Clooney's pride, is in the basement of his DC townhouse, all ready to go. I didn't know what to believe. I knew that Dirty Dancing was set in the Catskills, but filmed actually in North Carolina, outside of Asheville. I'd been there to a residency there. I tried to imagine a fuck chair scene in that meaningful film, Dirty Dancing, a fuck chair in a recreational barn, a fuck chair in the corner, or in a room with an abortion in progress, fucking that doctor who turned out to be like a butcher, a bad doctor. The guy had a dirty knife and a folding table. I seem to remember Dirty Dancing wasn't filmed in the Catskills at all. In the film, Cumin, there's no farm, but actually at the real Dirty Dancing resort in the Catskills, it is mostly a farm with a lot of animals. But the thing that men, or male screenwriters, can't do is they don't really write rapport. Their scripts are very lean, Cumin. Had I told her my name? If I tried to get mentorship for my screenplay, which is a thriller, these male mentors would end up talking to me about pacing. They'd emphasize pacing to me. Can you imagine? They'd want me to write something at a lean pace, like something is gaunt. Something is moving because it's starving, it's gaunt. That's good screenwriting to these butchers. And they'll put montage music over the conversations to keep things nice and lean. A starving jaguar in a dead world. It's not accurate. There are jacarandas around the world. Nice and lean, they'd coach me, making so much money on this stupid summer gig. They'd take the writing of rapport out. Rapport is important. Everyone needs rapport. Money can't buy you rapport. You can't carry your watermelon across the desert alone, lost and starving. You know what I'm saying to you? I thought of all the times in my little life I've been caught at the wrong table at a cafe. And I thought anyway, Ultimo would be closing. I'd be saved by its closing up around 9 p.m. But it was open late. There was something going on at Ultimo. More people kept coming in. But a thriller should be lean. I tried to say something. That's the whole point of genre. It tells you what to do in this ended place. There is rapport in a thriller. What is your thriller? I went for a lot of walks with my tutor at the Dirty Dancing Farm and Resort in the Catskills. I could never get her to tell me, though, if she was an incest survivor. I tried to create an intimacy. What did she have to say about your screenplay? Did she understand how to teach you to build any rapport? Okay, it's about to change a lot, so let me just have some tea. We visited this Morbandite. Morbandite? A Morbandite is a sleek, haunted donkey that comes from Belarus. It's not Donkinus technically for the genus, but it's genuinely cumin, like a donkey dragged through a mossy ditch of Daniel Day-Lewis-ishness. That's really the only way I can say it. A piercing animal, a sort of a sex donk. Why were there Morbandite? Morbandites. It's not like deer, it's plural. There was only one Morbandite cumin because of their known viciousness. Only one per 100 acres or so. That's the guideline. Otherwise, it's very upsetting. She showed me a picture of the Morbandite she'd met, and it did look sexy for a donkey. Like it was, in fact, about to mouth the word cognac, as Daniel Day does, mouthing cognac. With his twinkling eyes, he mouths cognac in the unbearable lightness of being to his country waitress, Juliette Binoche, in that movie. She brings one right over to him. I think I've heard of Morbandite meat. Isn't there a Bourdain on that? We'd eaten some sausage made out of the last one, but he, the present Morbandite, was a teenager. We were never going to eat him. The Morbandites, they call out. It sounds like cognac, cognac, all through the night. You could hear him ordering his cognac through the vegetables and fences while you lay there in your very own dirty dancing cabin. My God, I wanted to bring him one. My tutor and I would talk about him endlessly instead of about my thriller. She wasn't doing her job. We were both crushing on him. He was our donkey boyfriend. We pretended to be jealous of one another over how he would look at us. Piercing, twinkling, cognac, cognac. He was all hot, that was for sure. He would come out of his gate, slinky and limber, and follow us both around. We parted at the cabins, her to the staff side with the other esteemed tutors, with the Cohen brothers and David Cronenberg and Brandon Cronenberg, who were, I learned, having dance-offs over there that us customers couldn't dream to compete in, really high level and slutty, scissoring, even between father and son. And when we parted, me and my tutor, our boyfriend, would turn back to his area, ambling. He had tight balls with no hair around them. One day, he did choose me, only a little. He followed me about 3 feet toward my cabin, and then he turned and ambled away. That was it between us. She never spoke to me after that. though we had a week left and I was paying to work with her. Very Carrie Bradshaw. She was feeling the deep turmoil of that slight and bestial rejection, huffing at her laptop in the dining area, putting on a show, sitting there at night in a big overblown ball gown, smoking though you weren't allowed, so upset about this slightest of slights from our fucking fake Morbidite boyfriend. He wasn't even ours. He wasn't human. What was he? He was just a little piece of pre-meat cumin, but she felt so abandoned. But she was no Carrie Bradshaw. My tutor was a really hideous woman. I thought Carrie Bradshaw was a gay man on the inside. I thought that is the secret inside of Carrie, the gay man writers, not necessarily the story of a hideous woman and her incest. She was disgusting. She looked like a fuck chair abandoned in a dumpster for like a reason. The sun smashed its big dumpsters of Oranginas on the bricks of all the row homes across the street. It was setting. More late-night comers were pouring into Ultimo, and an open mic event was seeming to be being set up. My table mate told me at length the story of her thriller, and I tried very hard to orange concentrate, but I couldn't. I kept staring at the people and the open mic being set up, but it wasn't an open mic. Oh no. It was an MFA thesis reading for one person, a young man, a graduate of creative writing here in a city of hospitals. He was going to read his thesis to all of us for over half an hour. A little program was being passed around. It said as much. We were going to be treated to a long, short story. Oh my God. His parents were there, his professors. I began to think of all the men I'd known who were pursuing creative writing, like recalling a series of bad dates I'd been on in Manhattan, the one with the scarf, the ass licker, the one with the agent, the raper, the arguist, the one writing a 9/11 novel, the one writing a rape scene from the perspective of the bed. I shuddered. I said to my table mate, we should get out of here. Pronto. Do you live around here? Oh. Cumin, she said. Cumin Beilin. I thought you recognized me. This is why you wanted to finally talk. Aren't we both here for the same reason? The lights were dangerously dimming down. I live in Marin's closet. I moved in a week ago. I'm so sorry. I'm just out of eye surgery. Something is really screwy with my brain. Tell me, have I been going on? And just like that, it was too late. Thank you.
Well, I ended up not being sad that you didn't read from Revenge of the Scapegoat, but you can buy Revenge of the Scapegoat and read it to yourself in those voices. You can do this. Our next reader is Hilary Plum. Hilary's recent book is a poetry book, but she had a book of essays called Whole Studies come out in 2022, and it kind of is my Roman Empire. I think that like your Roman Empire is supposed to be something that like is old, but this is my Roman Empire. I'm thinking about it all the time. I'll tell you a little bit about my thoughts. Hilary Plum's Whole Studies is a book about care and the forms it may take. It is a book about the forms and the not yet forms used to write with. As Plum writes in one of the essays, I was an expert in form, not content. It is a book of radical hope for new formations of how we read and write and care for each other. Whole Studies provides readers a place to feel and frame our care and concerns with gender, illness, and the academy. Precarious or not, professional or not, politically struggling or otherwise, Plum asks, what does this space hope and work for? And she shows us the ruptures, the fissures, the broken, but she also invites us in. We can tell her that we are listening, that we care, that we are together, ready to write and rage into the holes marred and marked by this world. Please welcome Hilary Plum. I forgot to do this other thing, which is there's going to be a reception after, so please stay for the reception. And there's maybe going to be a Q&A, so get your cute questions ready for their answers. Okay, now Hilary.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me back there? Okay. I love reading with Caren, but I also hate it because I hate going after her. And because you're the naughtiest girl in the world, I think. This is a little bit of a middle-aged love fest, I feel like, because I also want to talk about Michelle and how I think I've been going to this series for over a decade. That Michelle has been hosting it and making these kind of gathering places for poetry and for people. And I just remember when Michelle's first 2 books came out, they taught me so much and I was so intimidated by them. I think I didn't talk to you for many years because they had so much to say about how the systems we live in, the economic systems, it kind of manifest in language, how we can work language to kind of expose our agency. And how there are moments of being outside or in the woods. These are her books, Barn Burned Then and Sorry Was in the Woods. So if you haven't read them, you should do that. And Caren, hello. There's so many people in the audience I'm so happy to see. I'm going to read a little bit from both of these books that Michelle mentioned, but I'm going to give you what you want and read from Whole Studies, Michelle. I'm not going to do you like that and not read from that. I had all these weird notes written out, but then you kind of said a lot of them. So I'm going to read a few poems from this book, Excisions, which has a nice unicorn on it. And there's a dog. I like to tell people the dog is licking the unicorn's wounds, not biting. I'm just going to read a few poems, and I was trying to, both of these books, I wrote a lot of them while I lived here in Philly, so it's very nice to be back in Philly reading them. In these poems, I think the things that inform them might be that I went to LA for the first time, and everyone was really rich, but didn't talk about it. And I went to exhibit at the Penn Museum. Actually, I was remembering that this morning. It was an exhibit co-curated, I think, by Lauren Risfit. I don't know if any of you know her. She teaches here. And it was about sort of included all these artifacts that had been rescued from the wars in Syria and Iraq, and included a work by a Syrian artist who had built, I think it was the city of Aleppo, a model out of matches. And so the poems are also maybe a little bit about like the power structures that underlie museums or how you enter them, and are also in a sense of the limits of the ways we know. All right, I'll read a few of these. If a gun disappears, it reappears. Had the sort of job you couldn't see clearly, it was just money. Like heaving stones no archaeologist schooled in empire declines. Out of matches, I am building a facsimile of the city. In the version of you represented on film, you speak the language of the disease they invented the machine to see. Watch. This match gets lit. Canal. Back and forth by the water, strollers grow pinker until they're shopping carts. In a museum, the war did not glass itself up. The name of your country was changed, glass worn by the force of the tongue. You want the sculpture to be in uniform, so lay your uniform against the naked lacquer, turn your name in, turn the corner to where the air has been, desertified to nourish the sphinx a boat brought here, an absent boat. Wood often softens, spit glass or blood glass. Figures like yours contest a gone landscape, airport paved over uncatalogued birds, or a camp popularizing that no procurator enters. Song has a habitat, but this is not song, just resemblance. As each year on what I call your birthday, you swallow perfumed ashes, keep the worms at bay. I'll do one more. From our hell. A flare rising. Below in the passages, this is light, light, light. Anyone could open a door. You were not there. having never learned the difference between camp and city. The difference is there. Another hand, I read. The newspaper was obscured after a scrim, the hue of flesh, never yours but preferred. As if night were a room in which your long dream of my flesh was housed, blinds low, night lasts, not a history, but a time you still recognize, jasmine or rosemary, appealing back, a quarry children still swimming. Thanks. I'm going to read from this orange book, Whole Studies, and I'm going to read from the section that says why it's called Whole Studies, so we'll get to that. I wrote a bunch of this book. I started it when I worked like right over there. I worked for the University of Pennsylvania, and I wrote this essay about like what I was doing in that office ever, which was maybe not my job exactly. I had an idea at the time that if we all like told the truth about our jobs and what they were like and what we were ever doing in an office, that would be very useful, like a testimony. And so the first essay in that book is kind of about that and about marginalization in the academy, about adjuncting, and about maybe the legacy of the so-called global war on terror, and also about this hip-hop group called the Sweatshop Boys. But Michelle kind of talked about it already. I'm not going to read from that, so if that intrigues you, you'll have to read the book. I'm going to read a little bit from the title essay that's about Sinead O'Connor. And I was thinking of her in part because she passed this summer at age 56. And a lot of people were reflecting on her in that moment, and these women who, kind of history never got right with them. They never got what they were owed. And thinking about the Me Too as this unfulfilled movement for justice. It's like the Me Too movement happened, but it still hasn't happened yet, is how it sometimes feels to me. So I thought I'd read a little. As Michelle said, I think of this book as being about like care and the forms it may take, or how you identify an opportunity for care that someone's created, they've offered, which is a kind of thing that art can be. But what kinds of listening do we have to cultivate to receive that, and to know what to do? And that has to do maybe with difference and collaboration, or learning to listen across difference, or to something that comes in a different form than you were expecting. Sinead is remembered a lot for her big protest, which I'll read about, her 1992 protest. And I was thinking today, she was also a mother. She was very proud of being a mother. She had 4 kids in unconventional family structures, like all different stages of her life. She had her kids, but she lost one of her kids in the year before she died. And some of you may remember that. He was just a teenager. And she wasn't really in public very much after that. And when she talked about her activism, she talked about it really as being on behalf of kids, of kind of the children of Ireland, and feeling that no one ever spoke for them, and that their lives were shaped by kind of the structures of colonialism and religious oppression that were kind of left in place. And that she was speaking on behalf of them, but also that she would speak, even when she was an adult, in the present tense. She would say, I am an abused child. She would say it in the present tense, because I think for her that became like a political status, sort of like a politicizing status, or radicalizing for her. And she talked about, like in the lyrics of her songs, you can hear her talk about like her childishness, or that she knows other people think of her that way, as being childish sometimes. So she really believed in that. Anyway, why was I thinking about this today? I was thinking about in this moment of new war, of a war being reignited, and with her kind of in my head, in my ear, I was thinking of, that wars are all kind of wars against children, right? They suffer the most in them. They have the least responsibility, and it costs them the most. And they lose the thing we owe them, which is hope and a freer, more just, more loving future. So I was thinking of that today. It's like many of you, I woke up and read of, the situation of children in Gaza, where there's 1 million children who live under those bombs right now. So I was thinking of her attention to children and also of her big heart, and how she kind of calls us into care and responsibility for each other, and these questions of what we owe each other and what we can do for each other. And when I think about that, I feel like we're all kind of at lost in that, or I'm at a loss in questions like that, and I also feel called upon. So I'm going to read a little bit from this essay about my encounter with her work, I guess, and a sense that art, like, that I feel like I got from her, but we can talk about it after. You can tell me what you think. My sense that from her that art is a practice of working not toward another world, not like toward a better world, but like in it, like in that moment when someone creates something and offers it and you respond, you actually are in that other world for a moment. And I think that's, at least that's something I think she was trying to show us. All right. Professional expectations. I've used the phrase. I meant it, I think. When you say something like that to someone, professional expectations, you're speaking to an audience beyond that someone. Your boss, their boss. A subpoena to come. A future in which you'll download all your emails as PDFs and send them somewhere to be judged. To speak differently would require some form of mutuality that is beyond such phrases. The phrase, professional expectations, marks a failure of dialogue. It describes this failure as your interlocutor's, not yours. Your ability to use the phrase is a rhetorical parry through which you deny the possibility you aired. You're saying to someone, there are expectations, a code you should know and you don't. You should fulfill these expectations and you're not. You're warning someone of their error's possible consequences or threatening those consequences. But really you're saying, or I felt like I was saying, there's another way of being together far from phrases like this. I'm giving up on all that with you. I've failed to be there with you. In a brief video from 2005, 12 years before the New York Times and the New Yorker began publishing accounts of serial rape, sexual harassment, and assault by prominent film producer Harvey Weinstein, a comedian hosting for Comedy Central stops Courtney Love for some playful chit-chat on some red carpet. She asks Love, musician, actor, rock star, widow, do you have any advice for a young girl moving to Hollywood? Love says, I'll get libeled if I say it. If Harvey Weinstein invites you to a private party in the Four Seasons, don't go. She says it fast, as if tricking herself into not saying it. She sounds like she's giving you something. 12 years or so later, when public favor had turned on Weinstein and criminal charges were forthcoming, Love stated that after this tiny interview aired, she'd been eternally banned by CAA, the major Hollywood talent agency, which worked with Weinstein on many films, and though at least 8 agents had been told about his abuse, regularly sent young women actors to his notorious private meetings. Punishment for this undisciplined moment of truth. I once watched a documentary in which Courtney Love's own dad accused her of conspiring to murder her husband, Kurt Cobain. Love is the sort of woman everyone feels comfortable saying anything about. Messy, slutty, rambling, an addict, waste of talent, bad plastic surgery, whatever. Rumors shift credit for the songwriting of the band Hole away from Love and onto, traditionally, Cobain and or Billy Corgan. These rumors can be dispelled just by listening to Hole, an introduction to what we'll call Hole studies. Courtney Love's speech that day was off the cuff, disregarded, prophetic. History proved its worth. For years, Weinstein used highly repetitive strategies and scenarios, the hotel room setup especially. His crimes were both profoundly personal and systemic. By forcing and demanding sex in exchange for a successful career in the movies and professionally punishing the women who distanced themselves from him, he set the terms for women working in American film. By no coincidence, the workforce of film and television has had remarkably few women in positions of power or artistic independence. Its lack of diversity, the sheer dominance of white men, is obvious. But Love was not an authoritative speaker. In general, and especially when she suddenly broadcast this insider knowledge ugly on a red carpet, she didn't meet professional expectations. I don't know if anyone ever took her good advice. Her accusation, not explicit but clear, had no effect on Weinstein's status. It didn't seem to inspire much curiosity or follow-up in journalism or among industry professionals other than, like CAA, to punish the speaker, since 12 years and much more violence occurred before, from a more respectable realm of media, the story broke, or broke again, this time with the necessary authority. In those years of Me Too, eyes on the internet, we talked about the crazy women, the truth tellers. I found that Courtney Love video, watched it again. From the YouTube stats, others were doing the same. Somehow I thought the force of Love's redemption, the redemption of women like her, their purposeful, altruistic misbehavior, would change how she was thought of, how she was talked about, would elevate her in the eyes of some audience I never specified. Even though I knew the whole incident was minor, barely part of the story of this man's crimes, barely part of Love's own story. But I believed it mattered. I thought of Sinead O'Connor, how in 1992, as you may know, it's very well known, she tore up a photograph of Pope John Paul II during her performance as the musical guest on Saturday Night Live. For years, that was kind of all I knew about this act. In 92, I was 11. Then another phrase got attached to it, to protest child abuse in the Catholic Church. She'd sung a cappella Bob Marley's song, War, a protest of racism and colonialism, lyrics based on a speech Haile Selassie gave to the UN in 1963. But she altered the lyrics to place an emphasis on child abuse. In the US, the Boston Globe's major stories on abuse in the Catholic Church would start appearing in 2002, 10 years after O'Connor's protest, when, as she reached the song's concluding lines, which speak of the victory of good over evil, she held up the Pope's image, obscuring her own face, then tore it in half, looking right into the camera as she tore the photo again and tossed it at the floor, saying simply, "Fight the real enemy." After which, in absolute silence, standing amid an arrangement of lit white candles, she removed her earpieces. In my youth, O'Connor was talked about like she was crazy, like she was kind of cool and interesting, kind of laughable. Her 92 stunt was described as a stunt, something big and weird someone did, something shocking, like the attention and not the content was the point. A curiosity. Among teens, she wasn't necessarily hated as she was by pundits and commentators at the time, but she wasn't respected. She wasn't treated like an authority on the subject she'd chosen in a big way to address. So it happens if you listen. Maybe we listen best when we feel someone has trusted us especially, to listen. In college, a friend was dating my boyfriend's roommate on the other side of the wall. All us girlfriends of that room group, a college dorm concept, sort of banded together. My friend was in the same situation as I was, but worse, and she was better at it. Our boyfriends had musical taste, and we didn't. Her boyfriend was, in her view, a musical snob, and she liked what she liked, pop music and the women singer-songwriters of her day. I usually felt ashamed, a bit inferior, a little bored, insecure when good or important music was played that I didn't enjoy, when I didn't know the group or even the genre, the basic category everyone was talking about, when people made fun of something I basically liked. My friend was neither bored nor insecure. At a little family party for her graduation, she watched as her boyfriend caught the background music playing, the expression on his face. She howled with laughter. "I knew you'd hate it," she said, then said to the rest of us, "Guys, this is a CD called Jazz for When You're in Love. Isn't it great?" On a car trip sometime to somewhere, she popped in a Sinead O'Connor CD. "He hates it," she said, nodding to her boyfriend in the passenger seat. He might have briefly, discreetly groaned. "But don't you think," she said to me, "that she's really good? Isn't she good?" I agreed that Sinead was really good, not because I'd ever thought about it before or knew what I thought then, but because my friend was good. I wanted to be on her side. I couldn't tell if I liked the music or not, probably because I couldn't tell if I should. In an interview the day after her SNL appearance, O'Connor describes her action as a response to the Catholic Church's complicity in the colonization of Ireland, and colonization as a cause of child abuse. This protest was about Ireland and made possible in America. She took advantage of this live American TV show to, in her words, create an opportunity for people, including myself, to say how they feel. I couldn't find any way of saying it anywhere, and there didn't seem to be any way for anyone else to say it, and so I thought, well, fuck it. In the video of this interview, just then she makes a gesture of tearing, reproducing her gesture from the night before, though then she was standing tall and looking right into the camera at millions, whereas now she's leaning forward, elbows on her knees, looking alternately down at the floor and up at a man sitting close beside her, interviewing her for a reggae TV show called Vidums. And after you did that, Sinead, in your words, what happened? Well, there was a deathly silence for about half an hour. The doors were all closed and all that, and they were all screaming at my manager. And that's all that happened, really. What effect do you think this is going to have on your career, Sinead? I don't know. Do you care? Well, it depends on what you mean. You'd have to say what you meant. In 2021, O'Connor will write, I feel that having a #1 record derailed my career, and my tearing the photo put me back on the right track. In an interview that spring, she'll agree that the moment defined her career. Yes, in a beautiful fucking way. There was no doubt about who this bitch is. There was no more mistaking this woman for a pop star. But it was not derailing. People say, oh, you fucked up your career. But they're talking about the career they had in mind for me. I fucked up their career, not mine. She'll write, success was making a failure of my life. I gotta get to the other side of life. But in the moment, impossible thickness and speed of the present, knee to knee with life as it happens as you ask for an ashtray no one brings. In the day after interview, Vidum's host Tone Lindo is charismatic and patronizing. He's stuck on the question of whether O'Connor did something meaningful. Is she a naive pop star looking for attention, some half-baked politics that could serve as her brand? Or is she a worthwhile political ally and activist? His questions loop around this concern, and he has the accusatory tone that is often, and it's a bit unfair, directed at people who've tried to act, like, having done something, why didn't you do more or do everything? Yet, although he's skeptical, although he challenges her, he's not asking gotcha questions. He seems to really want to know what action would be meaningful and effective. What does it mean to do something? How do you do something that means? Like a good teacher, I'd say, he doesn't ask questions whose answers he already knows. Ripping up the Pope's picture may stimulate conversation, or it may bring attention to your feelings about the issue, he says at one point. But as I've said, there have been hundreds of other people who feel and know some of the same things you do. What can all you people who feel that way do? Just feeling that way about something and having a point of view is useless if you don't translate it into positive action. In reply, she invokes the exchange they're in. Well, I would consider this conversation to be positive action. Later, she says, I think for a start, if everyone stopped saying you can't and started saying you can and started saying we can, if you believe in God, then you believe that you can. There's one way to change things, and that's to put into action, as you say, what it is you truly believe in, which, if you believe in God, surely is the love of other human beings and the belief that God lives inside you. The thing is, you'll have noticed, the common explanation of this incident still gets it wrong. O'Connor wasn't protesting child abuse in the Catholic Church, the scandal as it would break through the media in the next 2 decades, or rather, she wasn't just protesting that. She was protesting the larger cause of this violence, colonialism. When asked to explain the next day, she talks about the colonization of Ireland and how the empire of Christianity, the real enemy, betrays the truth of God, God as truth. She made a global spectacle that wasn't clear, not easy to understand or assimilate. This gesture, extremely provocative, risked illegibility. And when she tries in this interview to explain, she risks unintelligibility. People are going to ask you, where are you getting your information? Lindo interrupts her discussion to say. But she got to find out what happened next. Where she was now, the day after, and the next. She'd saved the photograph of the Pope her abusive mother kept pinned to the wall. She put it to work. Thank you. Should we all
Don't get confused. We're not doing Corbin, Caren, and the narrator. They're going to stand here for the Q&A next to each other. I'm going to pass around a wireless mic. If anyone has a question, we can. As soon as we get the wireless mic, think of your questions. Then raise your hand, and I will come to you with a wireless mic.
We'll just stare at you guys.
Thanks. Sorry for that. Sorry. If no one has a question, I do. Does no one have a question? Okay, great. So I know that you guys have been talking about each other's work for a while. Can you talk about sort of your first encounter, the first thing you read by the other, how you were introduced, sort of when the collaboration kind of began?
I remember.
You go. Do you remember? Caren did something that everyone should do, and it changed my life, which is the very, very first thing I ever published. Yeah, it was the first thing I ever published, and then she wrote me like a note and was like, "Hello, I liked reading your thing." It was in Diagram, the magazine, and then we were pen pals, and she made a cool project based on this Milan Kundera thing that we all contributed to for a while called 63 Months with Dot Devoda and C.A. Conrad and some other people. Anyway, then we were pen pals. So she basically just wrote, she just like liked some writing and wrote to the person. And then she was trying to move to Philadelphia and wrote like a general email and was like, does anyone know a room in Philadelphia? And I was like, come live in my house. And then you did. Yeah. But when did I read I think then I read Caren wrote a novel called The University of Pennsylvania, just so you know, which
We're all in it.
Yeah, is fucking incredible. And it's also, I think sometimes, no one's ever let me teach this class called The Literature of Menstruation, but that would be the class, because that's what it's about. And it's also a little wicked about that William Penn statue. So that's what I remember. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
We have that book in the Writers House library upstairs. If anyone wants to read it in the Writers House, you can. You can also buy it.
Yeah, I don't know who's here, but if there are any like freshmen at the University of Pennsylvania here.
Oh yeah, there they are.
If you are a freshman
They
here
need to read it.
and you ever feel like you're menstruating a lot while you're here, you should check it out. It's about you.
I know people have questions now. Freshmen, questions? You want to read the book first?
Yeah, read it first, yeah.
Great. A freshman named Noah, who's actually in my class, wants to ask a question. So yeah, Noah.
Caren, I wanted to ask about Revenge of the Scapegoats and just like a little bit about what that's about.
Oh, like you want to pressies? Like, okay. Will do. Like you're considering maybe reading it or getting it, but I should like hand sell it to you. Okay.
Give us the pitch.
Oh God.
Pitch us.
Okay. The Revenge of the Scapegoat is about Iris, who's living in Philadelphia and is dealing with a recent diagnosis of a chronic illness, which causes her a lot of pain, particularly in her feet. She feels like a lot of pain from being the scapegoat of her family, always kind of the blamed person. And then in her 30s, she receives a mysterious package from her father, who she's estranged from, where he's resent her some very negative letters he wrote to her as a teenager, just as like an encore, like here they are again, telling you that you're the problem. And she really freaks out about that and moves to the country. Her feet are in a lot of pain. and in their pain have become Bouvard and Pécuchet, which are characters in a Flaubert novel. You know Bouvard and Pécuchet? Oh. It's fantastic. They're really wonderful retired Frenchmen who bicker a lot, and so she and Bouvard and Pécuchet move up to the country, and then she gets involved in this sort of like sinister art museum up there and becomes a cowherd, and like other stuff happens. Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
She didn't tell me either. I'm on the first page, I think.
Yeah, very soon.
Hilary is a character in Revenge of the Scapegoat.
Yeah, I mean, I write a lot of autofiction where it's sort of a blurred line, and I wanted to gather my friends around me while I was writing something that was, I didn't know it was a comedy. When my press was marketing it, they were like, funny, and I was like, what? I'm so serious. I had no idea that it was funny. And for me, I was just in a lot of pain over receiving some shitty letters from my dad. And so I was like, I need courage. I need all of like the best people around me. And so I just conjured them at the beginning of the book and started talking about Hilary and some other people that I just wanted to immediately kind of have as like part of the book so that I could feel okay. I would have asked you if I said something weird. I just talk about how wonderful you are, and I say,
I look great.
Yeah. Maurice is in the book too. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever shown writing to someone and said, "Hey, you're a character. What do you think of it?"
That's a great question. Do you have thoughts on that? Or?
I have in nonfiction. It seems correct a lot of the time to do that. Yeah. People, it usually goes fine. I don't know. Yeah.
I have a fraught relationship with it. I write about a lot of people in my life, and some of them I ask. And if they said no to anything, I would never put it in because I love them and I care. And some people I've never asked and I don't care. And that comes with consequences. It's not always nice what happens. But for the people that I care about and who care about me, I do talk to them really particularly and share with them the work or ask them, or even in the case of Revenge of the Scapegoat, my friend, the writer Ray Levy, is in that book. And I so desperately wanted him and our conversations about being the family scapegoat to be in the book. But he's a really great writer himself, and he was telling his story to me in a very particular way that I didn't feel comfortable repping him. And so we recorded lengthy conversations between us, and all of Ray Levy's dialogue in that book is directly transcribed from him. So sometimes I deeply collaborate with people and refuse to touch somebody's language in a way. But for an example, in Revenge of the Scapegoat, I talk about several of my family members in ways that are really hard and painful, and it was not easy for them, and I made that choice. So it's a mix.
We have time for one more question before we reception and chill.
Is the Julia Cameron who's thanked in your acknowledgements, is that the artist way?
You must be such an artist way person, Raul. Is that true?
This really surprises me somehow. I'm actually very surprised by this somehow.
It's against type.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble reconciling this, actually.
I did the Artist's Way is a kind of practice book from the 90s. I mean, there's many editions now, but it's a popular kind of way to practice art that kind of comes from 12-step programming. It's really, I bet a bunch of people know about it. It's pretty, anyway, I always had intended to try it. And then in 2020 with the pandemic, I said, well, I'm not going anywhere. I have full ability to devote my summer to this. And it changed my life, and I absolutely love it. And I agree with you, it's a little bit against type, but I think getting older as a person and a writer, you don't care about that. You're just like anything that helps. And I totally credit her deeply. I had such a beautiful time on The Artist's Way. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you to our readers. Thank you to this really robust audience. Thanks. Hope you guys have good feelings for the rest of the night and the day, the week.